Welcome back to Face the Nation. Joining us now, in addition to Jeffrey Goldberg, we have Ruth Marcus, who's a columnist and now deputy editorial page editor of the Washington Post. Congratulations, Ruth, on your new role. Mark Leibovich is the chief national correspondent for the New York Times Magazine. Peggy Noonan is a columnist for the Wall Street Journal and a CBS News contributor. And Ron Brownstein is senior editor at The Atlantic. Okay, Ruth, I'm starting with you. This was, we're going to start with emails, a very tough Inspector General report coming out of the State Department for Hillary Clinton. She went around the rules. When her staffers were asked about her private server system, they were told, do not ask about it again. What did you make of her and her campaign's response to that report?
Less than helpful to her and her campaign. The campaign would like this report to be understood as old news, yesterday's news, nothing new here, let's move along. It is less than devastating, but it is also less than helpful. It's both a reminder to people of the doubts, the pre-existing doubts that they already have about Hillary Clinton. She's not trustworthy. She doesn't think that the regular rules apply to her. And it adds some new information along those lines about the degree to which she never checked with anybody about what this was, and about if she had bothered to check, she would have been told no, this report says.
That's what's the most troubling, and I thought, in this report. I mean, kind of the insularity and the arrogance. Not so much the specifics of the emails, but about the kind of leadership style and what it says about how you might be as president. I did a panel a couple of years ago when Jim Baker and George Mitchell were winning the Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Academy of Public Administration, and they each said the same thing. The toughest thing was to find someone who could tell a president they were wrong. And what was I thought most apparent in this report was that there was no one around her who was willing to tell her that she was wrong. And when people tried to raise questions, they were told to be quiet. Those are ominous traits for a president.
Secretary Bob Gates said the exact same thing recently in an interview with him that we did. And then we asked Hillary Clinton about, didn't somebody tell you that this was wrong? And she said, well, no, because it was allowed. This report obviously said it wasn't allowed.
No, it wasn't business as usual. It was not approved. And when two professionals in state went to Hillary's people and did say, you know, we're concerned about this hacking, this isn't as it should be, they were literally told, don't come to us and say this again. That is terrible for a future president. There's one good thing. Inspector generals or inspectors general in Washington, D.C., consistently do good work. Nobody had gotten it at all near the bottom of this story. I think State's IG did a good job.
I think, I'm sorry, go ahead. I would just say that Donald Trump, instead of, I mean, I think this was a great week for Donald Trump to not say anything. And of course, so much oxygen was taken by Donald Trump bringing up Vince Foster and what he said about the Mexican judge in San Diego the other day. I mean, this is a lot of oxygen being devoted to an issue that, you know, frankly, could have been spent talking about Hillary Clinton.
Well, we'll get to Donald Trump and some of the exciting things that he said. But Jeffrey, let me ask you about this. We've been talking about the past and what this report says about the way Hillary Clinton behaved in the past. But I was talking to Democrats who have her interests so much at heart. They are on her team. And they are pulling their hair out at how badly this was handled in response to this. That when the email story first came out, somebody from her campaign said, well, she had behaved in the spirit and letter of the law. That is both not true. But in this week, in response to this, the people I've talked to have been shocked at how poorly it's been handled.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Democratic establishment, to borrow a term from Bernie Sanders, the whole Democratic establishment sort of feels like it's on a Bataan death march to the nomination. Obviously because of Bernie, because of a lot of other things, but this has just made them think to themselves that they don't have this in hand. They don't, and the issue, I was talking to someone this week who said that the issue is that they don't understand how they're perceived. To go back to this point that Ron and Peggy were making, they don't understand how it's being interpreted. Nobody inside is telling them, guys, she has a credibility problem. She has an honesty problem. You have to grab this by the horns, or else this summer is going to be a very, very long and possibly, to use your word, devastating summer for her. So there's still a kind of discord or dissonance between what the establishment is thinking about this handling and the way they're doing it.
Well, Hillary Clinton doesn't help herself when she argues when the email story first came out and after this IG report, that she has done nothing. She has done nothing different than any other previous Secretary of State. You know, stretching back apparently to Thomas Jefferson.
Right. He had terrible emails.
Which is actually just not accurate. and B, that she has been as even more forthcoming than anybody else because, look, she voluntarily gave over these things. That's just not accurate, and it's not convincing.
And she didn't talk to this Inspector General.
And she didn't talk to this Inspector General, which leads me to my next point, which is this is a tremor compared to the earthquake that I don't think is coming, but that could come in terms of the FBI, Justice Department investigation into not the handling of the emails, but whether there was misuse of classified information.
Let me ask you, we talked to Bernie Sanders, and he said, well, this is, of course, something that superdelegates will be thinking about. If they're thinking about it at all, assess for us whether you think Bernie Sanders' approach here, which is basically to try and convince these superdelegates, whether he has a chance in making that case and using this new information and the FBI investigation Ruth talked about in his case.
Well, I think there's something of an illusion at this point in the Democratic race, and if you look toward the general election polling, where Hillary Clinton is in the arena, is in the crosshairs, and her weaknesses are all out there for the public. I think Sanders polling better, which is the core of his argument to the superdelegates, I poll better, that is really an untested proposition, because I don't think no one has really spent any money yet publicizing the vulnerabilities that Bernie Sanders would bring to a general election. In particular, by their own count, by objective estimates, his agenda would increase federal spending by $1.6 trillion, 40% overnight, to the highest level as a share of the GDP since World War II, with taxes commensurate to do that. After $1 billion is spent on television, Ohio and Florida and the suburbs of Denver, telling people that his general election numbers might look a lot different than they do now. Not to say that he would necessarily be less competitive than Hillary Clinton, although I think in the end he would be, but certainly he'd be less competitive than it appears now. And the fact is, I think superdelegates are doing what they were designed to do. They were created precisely after the McGovern and Carter experiences because the party wanted more of a handle on producing a nominee they thought could win and could govern. And the fact is that at least the leadership of the Democratic Party don't think that Sanders passes either of those tests as much as Clinton.
Peggy, what do you think? The Bernie Sanders sticking around hurts Hillary Clinton how much when Donald Trump is out there as the Republican nominee for Democrats to rally around?
Well, I guess it hurts Mrs. Clinton's standing, or the perception of her, that she is Hillary Clinton, this behemoth with this organization, with this money, with everything, and she can't put this guy away. That is a challenge to her. That tells everybody vulnerability. But I still think the big story that we're talking about here in the email thing is very, very simple. Americans don't really trust Mrs. Clinton to be forthcoming and truthful. That's all in the polls. I forget what words they are, but you know what I mean. When you look at the tape of Mrs. Clinton saying things about the emails that have been shown to not have been true in the IG thing, she has been, I hate to say lie, but she has lied coolly, in a creamy, practiced way. It doesn't look good.
I would just
Go ahead.
I would just add to that in the hierarchy of worries, I would definitely put Bernie Sanders as lower down than the FBI. I don't.
Yeah,
I think
so
it's,
would I. Anyway.
I think it's. I think Ruth is right. There's a slim chance that this becomes a huge legal problem, but it's looming out there.
It's already a huge political problem.
It's a huge political problem, but legal problems are another thing entirely.
But bouncing off of Peggy's point, Mark, what the Clinton people would say and Democrats would say is, wait a minute, this campaign is not happening in a vacuum. The challenge here with the IG report is it's Hillary Clinton versus the Inspector General. They would like it to be Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. Donald Trump also has very high negative numbers in terms of honesty and trustworthiness.
Yes, I would say two things about that. I mean, I think Peggy's point that it was not business as usual compared to past secretaries of state is apt, but I think voters see this as business as usual in the Clinton world. This is a classic Clinton MO, the arc of revelations, sort of dissembling, spinning in a very professional way, and really not convincing anyone. It confirms everything we've been talking about Hillary Clinton. On the other hand, I think, look, I mean, the Clinton people would say, I think with some justification, that there's a complete double standard and honesty between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I mean, I think if you were to look week to week at what Donald Trump says and what Hillary Clinton says or doesn't say, and part of this is just the visibility he takes on, it's not even close. I mean, Donald Trump, just the volume of stuff that comes out of his mouth.
The volume of untrue things that come out of his mouth.
And even with Sanders, right? I mean, even with your interview with Senator Sanders. I mean, the fact is, he has run an incredible race, but he's lost the race, and not in the back room. He's lost it at the ballot. She's won 3 million more votes than he has. She's won 55% of the total vote. If you look at all the primaries and all the caucuses, of the 20 biggest states that have voted, the 20 biggest states, 18 have already voted. She's won 14 of them. 12 of the 20 states he's won have been among the smallest. You look at the exit polls; they've split white voters. She's dominated 3/4 of African Americans, 3/5 of Latinos. I mean, he has run a great race, but she has beaten him, and you know, that is the reality that Democrats are facing here at the finish line.
Let's pause here. We'll talk about the Republicans when we get back, so stick with us and we'll have more from our panel.